We begin today the Gemara on Daf Ayin Amud Beis, 11 lines up from the bottom of the Amud. The Gemara here is going to begin the discussion regarding ribis with a guy, whether you borrow ribis from, whether you borrow from a guy with ribis or you lend to a guy with ribis. In the Mishnah it said that it's allowed. So the Gemara here will bring a pasuk and a discussion about this. There's an interesting sikha from the Rebbe about this subject, Chelik Yud Beis Parshas Bahar, where it says in the Torah the Isser of ribis. And there the Rebbe says the fact that you see that the Torah says that you're allowed to lend money or borrow money from a guy with ribis. Not only that, according to some, it's actually a mitzvah to lend them money with ribis, to charge them ribis. It's because really ribis is not an union of gzeila. Ribis is a normal practice in loans. You charge interest on it. By Yidden, Torah says that you shouldn't do it. But because it's something which is a normal practice, that means that this is one of the ways how you can elevate the holy sparks, the nitzaitis that exist in the world amongst Goyim, and therefore charging ribis is allowed and even perhaps a mitzvah. Rebbe explains it there in the Sikha. Okay, so here the Gemara begins with a pasuk where it says in Mishlei, Marbe hoynoi beneshech, a person that is going to increase his wealth. How? Through neshech v'tarbis, through charging people interest. All of his wealth is then going to be gathered to be used to give to other poor people. What does this mean? Who's it going to be given to? To which poor people? Omar Rav, so Rav says, Kagayin Shvar Malka. Like Shvar, that was a Persian king, he took money from Yidden, he charged them a high tax, he took their money and he gave it to Goyish poor people. So a person thinks he's gathering wealth for himself through interest, it's going to be taken away from him, it's going to be given to others. So now Amar Rav Nachman, on this Rav Nachman said, Omar Li Huna, Rav Huna told me, what are we talking about here? Le Nitzracha, this pasuk is not needed. The Chiddush here is to say, Elo da afile ribis da oive kechavim. Even when you're charging ribis, when you lend money to a guy, even there it's saying that if you do this, the wealth that you gather will end up being given back to poor goyim. So here we see that Rav Nachman is saying that you're not allowed to charge interest even to a guy when you lend the money. Okay, as we'll see in the continuation of the Gemara, this is a gzeira midrabanan. Minat Torah it's allowed, but midrabanan there's a gzeira on this. So on this the Gemara asks, Rav Nachman, Rav asks Rav Nachman, the pasuk says l'nochri tashich, that to a nochri tashich. So the Gemara says, what does the word tashich mean? My tashich. Lav, don't you think it means tishoich, that you should charge him interest? You should bite out of his money and charge him interest. So as Taisus explains, the Gemara's question is, if the pasuk clearly says that it's a mitzvah to charge a guy interest, how would Chachamim come and make a gzeira that you shouldn't? Chachamim can't make a gzeira when there's a clear thing in the Torah that it says that it's allowed and you should do this. So the Gemara answers, the word tashich actually does not mean that you're charging him interest. Loi, tashich means, you have to read the word of the pasuk as it says. Tashich means that the money is being bitten out of your pocket, meaning the guy is the one that's charging you interest. So the Gemara asks on this, what does this mean? It says, L'nochri tashich le'sagi de lavachi. Is the pasuk here saying that you must do this, that a guy should charge you interest? That's what it says. It says l'nochri tashich, meaning you should pay a guy interest. How can it be the pasuk is saying that you must borrow money from a guy on interest? So the Gemara says, no, it's not referring to you borrowing money from the guy on interest. Rather, the main thing that we're learning out from this pasuk is la afuki achicha. It's coming to say that unlike the way you by a guy that you borrow from the guy in interest, by your brother you're not allowed to borrow from him in interest. Deloitte, that you're not allowed. That's the main thing the pasuk is coming to say. So it's not what it's saying, but it's the diuk, what we learn from the pasuk, that from a brother, from a yid, you should not borrow an interest. Fragt the Gemara, how could you say that that's what the pasuk is coming to say? Achicha behad yiksiv be. By a brother, by another yid, it clearly says in the pasuk, ulachicha loy tashich. And with your brother, you should not allow him to bite money out of you, meaning you should not borrow from him on ribis. That says the Gemara, laver olav be'ese v'loisese. So you're over on two things, on a ese and a loisese. The pasuk we just quoted is a loisese. The pasuk of l'nochri tashich is written in the positive. It's written as an asay, even though we're medayik from it, the loisese, that by your brother you should not borrow on ribis, but the klal is, any esse that's learned from, any lois esse that is, any lois esse that's learned from an esse has the halacha of an esse. So therefore we have over here both a mitzvah saseh and a mitzvah lois esse, that you're not allowed to borrow money on interest from another yid, from a brother. That's the pshat in the pasuk. But now the Gemara asks on what Rav Nachman said, that you're not allowed to lend money to a guy on ribis. Eisvei, it said in the Mishnah, loivin mehen umalvin moisam beribis. You're allowed to borrow or lend them money to a guy with ribis. And v'chein beger toishav. This is with a ger toishav as well, a guy that keeps shavim mitzvahs b'nei noyach. So how could Rav Nachman say that this is not allowed? So Rav Chia Bereid Rav Huna explains, as I explained before, it's a gzeiras chachamim, and chachamim made their gzeira only in a certain case. If a person needs this money, this income from the ribis that he's charging a guy to live, for his basic needs to live, then chachamim allowed it. But otherwise, if you're just charging interest, as the pasuk before said, to increase your wealth, that Chachamim didn't allow. And Rashi says here, according to this opinion, the reason it's not allowed is because if you get into the habit of charging a goy ribis, you'll come to charge a yid ribis as well. Ravina says there's another answer to this. When Chachamim made their gzeira and when not, regarding charging a goy ribis, over here, we're talking about Talmidei Chachamim. That's what the Mishnah is saying, that you're allowed to charge them ribis. Why Talmidei Chachamim different? Time am I gozer rabbanon? What's the reason why Chachamim did not want you to have these kind of business dealings with a guy and charge them ribis? Shelma yumud memaisav. If you are having too much business dealings with a guy, you're going to live with him and you're going to learn from his deeds. But if this person is a Talmid Chacham, yumud memaisav. We're not concerned that this Talmid Chacham will learn from the guy, and therefore he's allowed to have the business with the guy and charge him ribis. But for someone that's not on a level of a Talmid Chacham, there was exeira that you should not charge ribis even from a guy. So this is a different reason here. As you see from Rashi, before the Gemara said the issue of charging a guy ribis is that you're going to then get into the habit to charge a yid ribis. Rashi says Asi lemisrach. But here the Gemara is saying the issue is that you're going to b'chlal come to mingle with a guy and learn from all his deeds. And that doesn't apply to a Talmid Chacham. This is one version of what Rav Huna said. Others, though, taught this that Rav Huna said regarding a whole different subject. And what Rav Huna said was actually a little bit different. The Tanya Rav Yosef. Regarding this that Rav Yosef taught, it says in the Pasuk, in Kesef, Talve, Es Ami, that you're supposed to lend people money, people in my nation. That's first what the Pasuk says. And then it says, Es Ha'ani, or poor people, Imach should be with you. So the Pasuk here is telling you who you should lend money to. And it says first Ami, then it says Es Ha'ani, and then it says Imach. What do all these expressions mean? So the Braisa says Ami v'Nochri. First it says it should be people from my nation. That means if you have an option to lend money to people from Ami, a Yid, from my nation, or a Goy, a Nochri, Ami Kaidim. First you have to lend money to a Yid that needs the money. Ani v'Asher. If there's a poor person that needs money for a loan, or a rich person that needs money for a loan, who comes first? Ani Kaidim. So the Pasuk then says, Esa Ani, first you lend money for a person that's more desperate, that's poor. And then Aniyecha v'aniyei ircha, people that are poor from your family and people that are poor from your city, who comes first? Aniyecha kaidman, people of your family comes first. Imach, that's the imach means the ones that are with you from your family. Aniyei ircha v'aniyei ira cheres, there's poor people from your city and poor people from another city, from a different place. Aniyei ircha kaidman, the people from your city that are poor, they come first. That's the order that we learn out here from this pasuk. So now, so what did the Tana here say in this Braisa? Ami v'Nochri. If you have a choice to either lend money to a Yid, to people from our nation, or to a guy, who comes first? Ami Kaidim. You first have to lend the money to a Yid. So on this, the question was asked, Pshita, it's obvious. Why do you need a pasuk to teach me this idea? And on this, Amar Rav Nachman, here's what Rav Nachman said, a statement from Rav Huna, Amar Li Huna, that Rav Huna explained this to me, Loi Nitzrecha, the Chiddush here in this pasuk is as follows, Da Afila L'Nochri B'Ribis, even if you're going to be lending money to a guy, you're going to have a profit because you're charging ribis. Ul Yisrael B'Chinam, and you're lending money to a Yid, you can't charge ribis. Free of charge. Nevertheless, you have to lend money to the Yid and not to the guy. That's the Chiddush here. Tanya, Amar Rabbi Yosi said, come and see the blindness of the eyes of those that lend money on ribis. What happens if one person refers to his friend as a rasha? What happens? You'll go and you'll try to take revenge of him for the fact that he referred to you as a rasha. You're going to fight with him. You're going to feel threatened by the very fact that he refers to you as a rasha. And here, what does a person that lends money with ribis do to himself? These people that lend with ribis, they're bringing witnesses, v'lavler, and a scribe, v'kolmis, and the quill, or vidyoi and ink, the kaisvin, the chaismin, and they're writing and they're signing a document of a loan with ribis. And what does it say in the document when it's ribis? Ploini zeh kafa b'lekei Yisrael, that this yid here that's lending money on ribis is denies in the mitzvah of the Eibishter. So you're sort of making the biggest announcement to everybody that you're a Rasha. So while you get so offended when someone else refers to you as a Rasha, but when you're doing this to yourself, it doesn't bother you. This is the blindness of the people that lend money on ribis. Tanya Rav Shimon Elazar, kol mi sheyesh leimois umalvaisam shaloi beribis. Anyone that has money and he lends it for people without charging ribis, all of akasav vaymitz regarding him, the pasuk says, kaspoi lenosam beneshech. His money he gave out without charging ribis. V'sheichad al nakilei lokach, and he did not take any bribery for something that's clean. Oisa eile, one that does this, loy yimoit lo olam. He will never financially collapse. You learn from this pasuk that someone that lends money with ribis, his money his possessions will all collapse. But someone that does not, his money will not collapse. So the Gemara asks him this, but we do see the loy maisvi beribis becomes maitatim. People that have money, they lend money without ribis, and they have a loss of their money. So how could you say that they won't financially collapse? Rabbi Lazar answered, there's a difference. Halalu mismaitutim vayilin. The people that lend money without ribis, even if they have a loss of their money, but then they come back up again. But halalu mismaitutim vayilin. The ones that lend money with ribis, when they financially collapse, they don't recover. A pasuk that says, Lama sabit baigdim, that he didn't ask and complain to the Eibishter, why are you looking at those that are treacherous? And tachrish, and you're silent, kabbalah rosh tzaddik, when a Rasha swallows up a tzaddik. This is connected to this union of ribis, when a person charges ribis and he swallows up another person's finances by charging ribis. Again, kabbalah rosh tzaddik mimeno. So Amar Rav Huna says, what it says here in this pasuk, tzaddik mimenu beileya. If there's a tzaddik, he's more righteous than the Rasha, it's possible that the Rasha could swallow him up. But tzaddik gomor, if a person is a tzaddik gomor, then Eini Bileya. He'll never be swallowed up. And Rashi says this is connected to the point we learned before, which means that this tzaddik gomor, he does not lend anyone on ribis, even if he's going to be swallowed up by other bigger people, financially he's going to collapse, but eventually he is going to come up again. He's going to get out of it. Tanya Nabraisa we learned, Rebbe said, Ger tzedek, ha'amele inyi mechire. When the Torah speaks about a ger tzedek, a convert that in this Megayah is a yid, that it says in the Torah regarding a sale, when a person is sold, and we'll see soon what this refers to. And the ger taisha va'amr le'inyan ribis, and the ger taisha, which refers to this guy that accepted upon himself Shavim Mitzvahs B'nei Noach, that it says in the Torah le'inyan ribis regarding ribis, eini yedeya mahu. I don't know how to explain this. In other words, Rebbe had a question regarding the term of ger tzedek that it says by mechira, and he had a question regarding the ger taisha that it says regarding ribis. So now the Gemara is going to spell out both of these details. Ger tzedek that it says regarding mechira, what was it referring to? The pasuk says, this is in Parshas Bahar, where it talks about a yid. Rashi there explains this is a yid that does not keep the mitzvah of shmita, and because of this, he has to end up selling his possessions. He gets poor, and then the pasuk there says, eventually what happens is because he didn't keep the mitzvah shmita, and he goes down from level to level. So then your brother will become poor, v'nimkalach, and he'll have to sell himself to you as a slave. And then further on in the pasuk, we see from what it says there, not only does he have to sell himself to a fellow yid, he has to sell himself to a ger. And here we're talking about a ger tzedek, shenem leger. And then furthermore, he falls even a level further, ger tzedek. If he doesn't do tshuva yet, not only is he going to have to sell himself to a ger tzedek, to a yid, a convert, leger toisha. He'll have to sell himself to a ger toisha, a guy that keeps Shavim Mitzvahs B'nei Noach. Shenem, as the pasuk says, leger toisha. It says in the pasuk ger toishav, but the Gemara here dashens it separately. Ger is one thing, and toishav is another thing. So then further on it says mishpachas ger, that you'll sell yourself to the family of the ger. What does this mean? Zeh nochri. That means that there's the ger, he was megayer, but his family was not, and you're going to have to sell yourself as a slave to his family, to goyim. And then Kishuayim, the pasuk further on says, Oile Eiker, what does this mean? Zeh hanimker lavedas kechav matzma. This is a yid that falls so low that he's going to be forced to sell himself to Avodah Zarah itself, which means, like Rashi says, that you'll be serving for Avodah Zarah to chop wood and to draw water for Avodah Zarah. That's what it says here in this Braisa. So now here the Gemara is going to explain what it says here in the Braisa, and then we'll see what Rebbe's question was on this. So the master said here in this Braisa, the seed is going to have to sell himself not only to you, el leger. He's going to have to sell himself as a slave to who? To a ger. Shenemer leger. So now, the question is, lememre the ger koni eved. Is this true? This is what the question over here that Rebbe had. Is it true that a ger could acquire an eved ivri? But V'ramini, I'll ask you from what it says in another Braisa, Ein a ger nikne b'eved ivri. A ger can't be sold as an eved ivri. And ve'ein isha v'ger, and a woman or a ger cannot kain an eved ivri. They can't acquire an eved ivri. And the Gemara explains the source for this. Ger le nikne b'eved ivri. Why can't a ger be sold and acquired as an eved ivri? Because it says regarding a ger, when he leaves his master, v'shavel mishpachta, he goes back to his family binon. That's what happens when he leaves. V'haleke, by a ger, he doesn't have a family to go back to. He was megayer himself, so therefore, if he can't go back to his family, he can't be sold as an eved. Ve'ein isha v'ger kain an eved ivri. A woman or a ger cannot acquire an eved ivri. Why not? Isha, a woman can't acquire a man, a slave for herself, because la v'yirachara. It's not the way of the people to have an eved for Isha, and then there's going to be an issue of yichud that she'll be secluded with him, and it's not sneas. Ger nami, why can't a ger acquire a yid as an eved ivri? Because gemiri, we have a Kabbalah regarding this, that the mikni kani, someone that could be sold as an eved, could acquire an eved for himself. The loy mikni, if he can't be sold as an eved, loy kani, he can't acquire the eved for himself. So we clearly see here in this Braisa that a ger cannot acquire an eved. So how can we say before in the pasuk that it says that this yid is going to be sold to a ger tzedek? Here we see it can't be. That was a question of Rebbe. And on this, Rav Nachman by Yitzchak explained that a yid could be sold as an eved ivri to a ger, but not with the same status, not fully as a regular yid that acquires an eved. There's a difference. What's the difference? Eina kaina vidina ki Yisrael. A ger cannot acquire an eved ivri that he should have the halacha like a yid that acquires an eved. Aval kaina vidina kanachri. You can acquire, a ger could acquire eved ivri and he'll have the halacha like a guy. What's the difference? The Tanya we learned in Abraisa, hanirza, a person that after 6 years, the eved ivri leaves his master, but if he desires to stay, so then you have to drill a hole in his ear and he could stay until yovel. That's the nirza. And v'hanimka lenochri, or a yid that's sold as an eved ivri to a guy. So if the master dies, he doesn't then get inherited by the children to serve the son or daughter. That's the halacha by when you sold to a guy. When you sold to a yid, you do. So when it says there that a ger cannot acquire eved ivri, he could acquire an eved ivri, but not that then this eved will have to serve a son or a daughter. That's the resolution here of this contradiction of the two braises. Okay, now the Gemara goes back to another detail of what it said there in the braisa, even though it's not related directly to the point that Rebbe said. It said in the braisa, "Ve'ein isha v'ger kain an eved ivri." A woman or a ger cannot acquire an eved ivri. So the Gemara says, "Neimeh like Rav Shimon Gamliel." It seems like what it says here in this brayse is not following Rav Shimon Gamliel's opinion. The Tanya, because in a brayse we learned, Isha kaines shvachis. A woman, if she wants to have people to help her, so she can acquire maidservants. But ve'ene kaines avodim. She cannot acquire male servants because, like we said before, there's an issue of yichud, so she can't have these men serving her. Rav Shimon Gamliel says, no, af kaines avodim. She could acquire even men to serve her. So we clearly see here that Rav Shimon Gamliel disagrees with this, that a woman cannot acquire an eved. So the Gemara answers, there's a difference. No, afilatayme Rav Shimon Gamliel. What we said before, that a isha should not acquire an eved, follows even Rav Shimon Gamliel. There's no contradiction. Kam be'eved ivri, kam be'eved kanani. Here it's talking about acquiring eved ivri, a yid as a slave, and here it's eved kanani. Here it's a guy, eved kanani. What's the difference? The Gemara explains eved ivri tzaniya law. Eved ivri. So if she behaves with him inappropriately, so then he's going to be quiet about it. He's not going to advertise this. So therefore, we're concerned about this, that there may be an inappropriate relation between them, and she's feels safe and secure about this because it's not going to be advertised to other people. So that is not allowed. Eved ivri cannot be bought by a woman. Evet Kanani Paritzla. Evet Kanani, a guy, is a person that will be open and speak to his friends about it. So we're not concerned that she'll have inappropriate relationship with him because she's afraid that he's going to advertise it to others. So therefore, that's not an issue. That's what Rav Shimon Gamliel said. It is allowed. So the Gemara asks, based on this logic, if so, this Rav Yosef says, Ar Malte Litarbi Kalba. An almana should not be living and raising a dog with her. She's living alone. She should not raise a dog with her. Because people are going to start saying that she's living with a dog alone, it's not appropriate. So she shouldn't raise a dog herself. And also, she should not host a yeshiva student that's in the city and needs a place to live. She's living alone, she shouldn't host him in her house. So the Gemara asks on this, it's understood why she shouldn't host the yeshiva student by her, because tzniya, like we said before, this yeshiva student, if chas v'sholom there's an inappropriate relationship between her and him, he's quiet about it. So we're concerned about this. Ela kalba, but with a dog, if there's anything inappropriate between her and the dog, kivin the misrach ba, then what happens is the dog will follow after her. Mirsasa, she's afraid that people are going to start saying and speaking about this, so therefore there shouldn't be an issue about this. Taisus here actually says that there is no real suspicion on a yid that she has a relationship with an animal, but it's still something that people will speak badly about. It's a rumor, it's down, people will say, so therefore we shouldn't do this. But according to the logic we said before, that she's concerned because everybody could see this, so then we shouldn't be concerned about this. So the Gemara says, Amri, they said, no, actually this is not something that will be known to people, because even if she just throws a piece of meat to the dog, misrach basra, so the dog also attaches himself to her and goes after her in the same way. So Amri Inshi, people will say, Mishum the misrach. It's only because of the meat that she served the dog. That's why he's following her. But if she has an inappropriate relationship with the dog, it won't be noticed by anyone. Therefore, there's a concern about this. Okay, this is the conclusion of one inyan that we mentioned before, that Rebbe had a question regarding the halacha of Eved being sold to a Ger Tzedek. Now the Gemara says there was another question that Rebbe had. Ger Toshav v'Amar L'Inyan Ribis. When it says the expression of a Ger Toshav in connection to Ribis, Samahi, what was the question that Rebbe had on this? The pasuk says, your brother is poor, and his hands are faltering with you, you should hold him up. And then it says also, Ger v'Toshav, even a Ger Toshav, referring to a guy that keeps Shavim Mitzvahs B'nei Noach v'chayimach. He should live with you. And then in the next pasuk it says, Al tikach mi'itay neshach v'tarbis, do not charge him any interest. V'yirei melekacha. You should be fearful from Hashem, v'chayimach, your brother should live with you. So here, if you read the simple pshat of the pasuk, it seems like it's saying, not only you shouldn't charge a yid ribis, but it also says Ger Toshav, that you shouldn't charge him ribis. And this was Rebbe's question from what it says in our Mishnah, that you're allowed to lend or borrow from a guy with ribis. And the Mishnah clearly said this includes even with the Ger Toshav. So here Rav Nachman Yitzchak answered this question of Rebbe as well, that Miksiv al tikach me'itam, does the pasuk use a plural term when it says ribis? Do not take from them, referring to both that it spoke about in the previous pasuk, from a yid and from the Ger Toshav, that you shouldn't charge them ribis. Me'itoiksiv. Here the pasuk specifically says a singular term, which means mi'Yisrael, only from a yid. It mentions Ger Toshav in the previous pasuk where it says v'chai imach, that you should support him, you should help him. But then in the next pasuk, when it talks about not charging ribis, there it's talking only about the yid. Tana Rabbanan and Abraisa we learned, Al tikach mi'itay neshech v'tarbis. You're not allowed to take ribis from a yid. But you could become a guarantor for a loan of ribis. So the Gemara asks on this, what does this mean? You're becoming a orev leman. You're becoming a guarantor for a loan. Who's the lender over here? Are you becoming a guarantor for a loan for a yid? The lender here is a yid, but how could it be? Vatane or vatnan. This is a Mishnah later here in this Perek that says, Elu oivrim b'loi sesa. The following people that are involved in a loan with ribis are oivan the lav of ribis, hamalve the lender, va'loive the borrower, ha'arev also the guarantor of the loan, and va'edim and also the witnesses. So over here it says a guarantor, is you allowed to be a guarantor for a loan of ribis? How could that be? Elo the Gemara says lenochri. This refers here to a loan where who's the lender? The lender is a guy, so that's allowed. But the Gemara asks on this, how is this still allowed for a yid to be a guarantor for a loan where the lender is a guy? The kiv and the dine, since the way the courts, the Goyish courts, Dine de Nachri. The Azal Basa Arve, when the guy comes to collect his loan, who does he go to collect his loan from? He goes directly to the guarantor to collect the loan. Right? But the way it usually works in a Yiddish Bezdin, the way it works with a guarantor, is that the Malve goes to the Loive to collect his loan. If the Loive doesn't have what to pay, so then he goes to the Orev. But by a Geisha court, when there's a guarantor, the Malve, the lender, can go directly to the Orev to collect the loan. If so, if so, it's considered to be like it's the Yid that's the one that's lending the money to another Yid. Because the moment he becomes a Orev, it's like he borrowed the money now from the guy. And now it's like he's lending the money to another Yid. And then he's going to pay back the guy. And then he's going to charge that money with interest from another Yid. So if so, this should be considered like one Yid is charging another Yid on it with ribis. So you need the kashakim in bisa. It's this Yid that's taking ribis from his friend. Rav Sheshes explained, when is this allowed? Shekipul olav lodun bedina Yisrael. That this guy accepted upon himself to follow the way the halachis is by Yidden, that the guy is not going to collect the ribis, not going to collect the loan, that is, with the ribis directly from the Yid. The guy comes to collect the loan from the Yid that borrowed the money from him, and only if he doesn't have to pay, then he's going to go to the Orev to collect the money. So it's not the original loan that the guy is coming to. It's not the original loan in the beginning that we say that the guy goes directly to the Orev to collect the money from. No, the guy goes to collect the money later on. When it comes to the collection, who does the guy go to? He goes to the Yid that borrowed the money from him. And if that Yid doesn't have what to pay, and then he goes to the Orev. So now, when he comes to the Orev to collect the money, what's the loan here? The loan is already together with the ribis. And then this Orev pays the loan together with the ribis. So after he paid it, now he charges the Yid that borrowed this money of the guy, the loan together with the interest. And now he's not charging his friend, the Yid, interest. He already paid the loan together with the interest. And it's now that he's charging another Yid. So he's charging him for what he paid him. So therefore, this is not considered that he's charging another Yid ribis. Okay, so now the Gemara asks, "Ikibul olav lodem bedina Yisrael ribis nami lo lishkal." You're telling me that this is a guy that accepts upon him to follow the halachas the way it is by a Yid. So if so, he shouldn't be charging interest either. He's accepted upon himself to go according to the way it is by Yiddish court. Amar Rav Sheshes, so Rav Sheshes answers, no, shekibul olav luzu. He accepts upon himself this practice, the way it is by Yidden, that you don't go first to the Orev, you go first to the Loive, to the borrower to collect the money, but v'loi kibul olav luzu. But regarding this detail about ribis, that he didn't accept upon himself. Why not? Because regarding this detail, even in a Yiddish Bezdin, they'll tell you that a guy is allowed to charge interest from a Yid. So that is something that he's not accepting himself to act like a Yid, he's accepting what the Yiddish Bezdin will tell him. And Yiddish Bezdin will tell him, a guy is allowed to charge interest. Going back to the Mishnah said, Malve Yisrael mo'oisav shel nachri midas nachri chulo. A Yid that has money from a guy, meaning a Yid borrowed money from a guy. And now this Yid wants to go and lend that money to another Yid. He's allowed to go and lend that money of a guy that he borrowed to another Yid if it's midas hanachri, if it's with the guy's knowledge. But if it's not with the guy's knowledge, then it's not allowed. So here the Gemara brings a brayse that goes through the details about this. Tana Rabbanan we learned in the brayse, Mal v'Yisrael mo'iso shel nachri midas hanachri. When it says here that a Yid is allowed to lend the money that he borrowed from a guy to another Yid, if it's midas hanachri, with the knowledge of the guy, avolei midas Yisrael, but not the Yid doing this on his own. So Ketzad. What is the case here? What does this mean? Yisrael shalav ma'is min anachri. A Yid borrows money from a guy. Biribis, he borrowed money from a guy with a charge of ribis. And he wants to return this money to the guy. Now, Motza Yisrael Acher, a friend of his, a Yid, finds him and tells him, V'amalai, Tnomli, you give the money to me, Va'ani alam locha kederech shatamaylaloi. And I'll pay you back with this interest, just like you're planning on paying back the guy with the interest. Right? So you borrowed $100 from the guy, and you're going to pay back the guy. Give me the $100. Now you were planning on paying back the guy $100 with interest, so I'll pay you back the money here with interest. Also, so then this is not allowed, because what's basically happening over here is one Yid is lending another Yid this money that he has now in his possession from the guy, and he's charging his friend, a Yid, ribis. So that's not allowed. However, but if this Yid takes his friend that asked him to borrow this money, so he brings his friend to the guy. that he borrowed the money from. And he tells the guy, here, I want to take the money that I was going to pay you and lend it here to my friend, another Yid. Then mutter, then it's allowed. And the reason why this is allowed is because even though the money is going from the hands of one Yid to another Yid, but because he's standing in front of the guy and he's telling the guy, I'm taking your money that I was going to pay you and I'm lending it to another Yid, this Yid now, the first borrower of the guy, becomes now a shliach of the guy to lend money to another Yid. So it's not him that's lending the money to another Yid with ribbis, he's just a shliach of the guy to lend money to another Yid. So that's allowed. Now, the same thing will also be in the reverse case. Nachri shalav mas misrael, when it's the guy that borrowed money from a Yid beribis with ribis, and then a bikishlach zirim loy, the guy wants to return the money to the Yid. Matzah Yisrael, and there's a Yid now that encounters this guy. Yisrael Achra, another Yid encounters this guy. Va'amalai, and he tells him, Tunamli, instead of you paying it back to the Yid, give me the money. And I'll pay you with ribis, just like you were going to pay the Yid with ribis. So mutter, this is allowed, because this is a guy that's lending money to a Yid with ribis. If this guy then takes this Yid to the lender, to the Yid, and he tells the Yid, I was going to pay you back, but instead of me paying you back, I'm lending money here to this Yid. Then also, then it's not allowed, because then this guy is a shliach of the first Yid, the lender, to lend money now to another Yid with ribis. So then it's not allowed. That's the Braisa. Okay, so now the Gemara asks on this, comes out from the pshat of what it says here in the Braisa, both in the Reisha and in the Seifa. When you have over here the case where the first borrower brings the second borrower to the guy or to the Yid. So what's the basis of what it says here in this Braisa? That when you come in front of the guy or you come in front of the Yid and you say, instead of me returning the money to you, I'm going to give it to him, you become the shliach of the first lender. That's what that's the basis of this whole Braisa here. So the Gemara asks on this like this. In the second case of the Braisa, we can understand what it's saying here. L'chumre. What the Gemara is asking over here is like this. There's a halacha regarding shlichus. Shlichus ladim kamaisa, you do something for someone else, so then you're in his place, it's like he's doing it. But this halacha of shlichus that we learn out, the Gemara is soon going to bring the pasuk from where we learn it out from. By Truma, it says, atem, gam atem, the whole halacha of shlichus that you learn out, that's only been negayed to one Yid and another Yid. The Mishaleach and the Shliach have to be a Yid. If the Shliach or the Mishaleach is a guy, there's no din of Shlichus B'chlal. So over here, what are we saying? That in the Seif of the Braisa we said that the guy borrowed money from a Yid, and then when the guy wants to pay, the guy brings a second Yid that wants to borrow money from him, and he goes in front of the Yid that he has to pay the money to, and he tells this Yid that instead of me paying you, I'm going to lend the money now to another Yid. So then what's happening over here? The Braisa said this guy becomes the Shliach of the Yid to lend the money. So because you're the Shliach of the Yid to lend another Yid money with ribis, it's not allowed. But so we can understand over here in this case, even though really there's no din of shlichus here. The guy is not really a shliach of the Yid, but nevertheless, we consider him to be the shliach of the Yid, l'chumre. Chachamim will machmer to consider him to be his shlichus, and it'll be yasser. So that we can understand. But however, in the Reisha of this Braisa, we're using over here this concept of shlichus l'kule as a heter. Kiv and the ein shlichus l'nachri. If there's no din of shlichus minatayra for a guy, so if so, the kashakul minayre bise. So it's really this Yid that's charging his friend another Yid ribis. What was the case of the Reisha? The case of the Reisha is that it's a Yid that borrowed money from a guy, and now another Yid wants to borrow money from this Yid. He wants to take that money, and the first Yid takes him to the guy and tells the guy, here, I'm going to lend your money on ribis. And here we're saying that the Yid becomes the shliach of the guy to lend him ribis, and therefore it's allowed. So here we're using the concept of shlichus, that this Yid, we don't say that this Yid is lending money to another Yid with ribis. No, we say that this Yid is the shliach of the guy, and therefore it's not ribis. But now you're using the concept of shlichus here to be mekel, lekula. Minatayra, there's no din of shlichus here. So how could you apply a din of shlichus over here to say that it's not the Yid lending him ribis? So the Gemara gives a few answers here. What are we talking about over here? The guy, when the Yid brings another Yid in front of this guy, so the guy tells him, pay me, how are you going to pay me? Just put it down on the ground, and that's it. Now you potter, you paid me already. And then the second Yid comes and takes it from the ground. So now it's not one Yid that's giving it to another Yid, because the original, the Malva, the guy, told him, put it down on the ground. So therefore, there's no issue of ribis. That's the pshat on the reisha. But the Gemara says, if that's the pshat, yochi ma'ila memra. What's the chiddush? Obviously, it's not one yid that's lending another yid ribis. He already gave it back to the guy. The guy told him, put it down here on the ground or on the table. So what's the chiddush in the braisa here? Rav Papa says, what happened is that the first yid that borrowed the money gave it back already into the hands of the guy, and then the guy took that money and went and gave it now to the second yid. And that's what the Braisa is saying is, there's no issue over here of one yid lending with ribbis to another, because he first gave it back to the guy. So again, the Gemara asks the same question, but if so, still the question over here is, what's the chiddush in this case? Of course, there's no issue of ribbis. You gave it already back to the guy. So the Gemara answers, no. Mao the time, because I would think to say, Nachri Gufe, the guy himself over here, Ki Ovid Adaita di Yisrael Kagomer V'Yov. Maybe over here I should say that there's a shlichus l'chumre, that this guy that's receiving back the money from this yid, and the yid is telling him, I want to really lend this money to my friend the yid. But he first gives it back to the guy, and then the guy is going to give it to that yid. So I would think that over here, the guy that's taking back the money from the yid and then is giving it immediately to his friend, another yid, the guy is now a shliach of this yid to lend money to this other yid. So over here I should say the shlichus l'chumra. Kamash Malon, that's why the Bryce and the Reisha said that no, that's not true, because he paid it back already to the guy that was his lender, and now the guy that lends it to another yid, that's the guy lending it to him. He's not the shliach of the yid. Another pshat the Gemara here tries to say, Ravashi says regarding the Reisha, so the basis of the whole question the Gemara is asking over here is that there's no din of shlichus min ha-Torah for a guy. So how could you apply the din of shlichus here for a guy to be makel, to create a heter? So Ravashi answers, Ki amrin ein shlichus lenachri. When do we say that there's no shlichus for a guy? Hana mili betruma. That's only regarding truma where there's no shlichus of a guy. The Gemara is soon going to bring, because the source where we learn out that there's no shlichus from a guy is by a pasuk by truma. So there, by truma it says a pasuk, so there's no shlichus there. But b'chol ha-Torah kula, everywhere else, yes, shlichus lenachri. There is a din of shlichus even for a guy. But now the Gemara says on this answer of Rav Ashi, the Rav Ashi berusihi. This answer of Rav Ashi is from the outside, meaning it's not accepted. Or another gear says bedusihi. It's not the good answer. Why? Ma'ishno trume deloi. What's the difference? Why trume? A guy can't be a shliach. Because the chsiv, the pasuk says atem. Gam atem. It's the gam atem that we learn out from the extra word that you can appoint a shliach. But we compare the gam, which is the shliach, to atem, which is the yid. Ma atem b'nei bris, just like the yid himself is a yid. Av shluchachem nami b'nei bris. The shliach also has to be a ben bris, a yid. That's what we learn out from Truma. If so, shlichus the chol ha-Torah kula. When it comes to shlichus and the entire Torah as well, nami mi Truma gamin no. We learn it out from Truma. That's the source of the inyan of shlichus, and that's the source that a guy can't be a shliach. And we learn out from there to say that there's no din of shlichus for a guy. So therefore, this distinction of Rav Ashi is not true. On this piece of Gemara here regarding the svara that Rav Ashi wanted to say and the answer of the Gemara, there's a long sikha from the Rebbe, Chelik Lamed Gimel and Parshas Kairach, where the Rebbe explains that Rav Ashi's svara was that the idea that there's no shlichus for a guy is the Gzeiras HaKosov. Misvara, there should be shlichus for a guy. It's a special Gzeiras HaKosov. So therefore he learned, you can't learn it out from Truma. And the Gemara explains, no, it's not a Gzeiras HaKosov. And the Rebbe there brings, the Lashon that the Alter Rebbe says in Lekutei Torah, that the whole concept of shlichus is that there's a relationship, there's a connection, that the shliach has to be k'may soida ha-mishalech, like the mishalech. He represents the mishalech, and he has to, he takes on the identity of the Mishaleach. A Yid and a guy, there's no comparison, there's no connection between them, so there can't be any union of shlichus. But then in the end of the Sikha, the Rebbe explains, Rav Ashi's svara was that the whole union of the shliach is, the shliach has to be independent. At the same time, there's two opposite things sort of regarding shlichus. On one hand, the whole union of a shliach is the fact that he represents and takes on the identity of the Mishaleach. But at the same time, a shliach has a mind of his own, an existence of his own, and that's the whole concept of shlichus, that he should be independent. So Rav Ashi thought, if so, a guy could also be a shliach, even though he's very different than a yid. Everybody explains this whole in Barichis, also in Avedis Hashem, how a yid serves the Eibishter. On one hand, you have to be completely bottled, but it also has to be within the independent existence of a yid. Okay, one more answer here Rav Ashi tried to say. Ikeda others say, Omer Rav Ashi, the answer Rav Ashi tried to say is, Ki Amrin ein shlichus lenachri. When is it that we said that there's no din of shlichus for a guy? Hanemili inulididon. That's if the guy is going to be the shliach for a yid. That's when there's no shlichus. Aval anan lididhu, but a yid that's going to be a shliach for the guy. Then havinalahu shliach. You could be a shliach for the guy. So our question was on the ratio of the Braisa, where there the case was the Yid is going to be a shliach for the guy. How are we using that din of shlichus lekula, that there shouldn't be any issue of ribis over there because the Yid is the shliach of the guy. There is a din of shlichus. Only a guy can't be a shliach for a Yid. But on this as well, the Gemara says, "V'hada Ravashi Berusi." This is what Ravashi said is also a mistake, because Ma'ishna inu lididon deloi. Why can't a guy be a shliach for a Yid? Because the chsiv, the pasuk says, "Atem gam atem." That the gam is the one that is marbe, that the din of shlichus, and we say ma'atem b'nei bris, av shluchachem b'nei bris, just like you are a yid. The guy, the shliach has to be a yid as well. He can't be a guy. If so, anan l'ditul nami. In this pasuk itself, you should see that the same applies also, that we can't be a shliach for a guy, because ma'atem b'nei bris kalmar. It says over here atem. Atem means the Mishaleach, the one that's sending is who? Is Bnei Bris, is a Yid. So just like the Shliach has to be a Yid, the Atem, which is the Mishaleach, also has to be a Yid. So therefore there's no distinction. Elo da Ravashi Berusi here. So therefore what Ravashi said is a mistake. Okay, one more answer. The Gemara over here says on this Braisa, Ravina says, he, the Shlichus Nalachri Lesley, even if it's true that there's no din of shlichus for a guy, as we learned out from the pasuk, however, s'chiyeh midrabanan islay, that there is though a din of s'chiyeh, the concept of zachan l'adam shalei b'fanav, when you do something for someone even without him telling you, but it's for his benefit, so then it works for that person like shlichus. But over here, the midrabanan though, there's a din of zechiyah even for a guy, and the Gemara explains where's the source of such a concept. Mididava cotton, just like it is regarding a cotton. Cotton lav isn't the halacha by a cotton. Avagav the lesle shlichus. A cotton cannot be a shliach because by shlichus it says the word ish, and a cotton is not a ish. But nevertheless, islay schiyeh midrabanan. The din of schiyeh does apply by a cotton. You could be zeicha for a cotton, or a cotton could be zeicha for you. This is midrabanan. Some rishonim actually take out the word midrabanan here, and some rishonim hold it by a cotton. There's a din of schiyeh even min atayre. But we learn from a cotton to say the same thing by a guy. Hachanami over here as well regarding a guy. Nami leishna, there's no difference. That even though there's no din of shlichus by a guy, but nevertheless the din of schiyeh does apply. But on that the Gemara says you can't compare. For lohi, this is not true, because Yisrael asil klal shlichus. A yid, a katan, is in general in the parasha of shlichus. Now he's a katan. He's not old enough to actually be a shliach, but he's somewhat already. He's in the parasha of shlichus because he's going to be. He's going to be a gadol. Akom le'asil klal shlichus. A guy will never come to the inyan of shlichus. So therefore, Chachamim did not institute for him the concept of schiyah either. So therefore, that's not a good answer as well.